And welcome back. You are watching the Social Justice Forums. Teens Take Charge is a student-led movement for educational equity in New York City. It also develops civic leaders who shift power into the education system to students. Our first guest is an organizer aimed at making sure the public school system lives up to its promise of providing an equitable education for all. This includes providing a platform for more than 60 New York City high school students to share their experiences in the school system on stages across the city, in official hearings, as well as in meetings with policymakers, on television broadcasts, as well as on major news outlets. Joining us now to share a little bit more is the details and organizer at Teens Take Charge and student at the Young Women's Leadership School of the Bronx, Maryam Choudhury. And Maryam, good to have you.
Hi, Daren.
Hi. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, too.
So give us a little bit about Teens Take Charge. Obviously, when we talk about young people and we talk about youth in particular, we see them at the front of a lot of social justice movements and a lot of movements all across the United States and literally all across the country. And for yourself, I know Teens Take Charge is an opportunity for young people to get involved at an early age.
Yeah, so Teens Take Charge is a very good organization. We always advocate for everything that's right because, 2020 has been a hard year. So we really wanted to focus on a lot of things like getting SYEP back. So that played on youth employment. And there were a lot of things like school segregation, which had to do with Black Lives Matter because, people of color are seen as minorities. So that, Teens Take Charge had to fight for them.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk a little bit about a couple of things you just mentioned. You talked about summer youth employment. I remember being a young man a little years ago, and I was a part of the summer youth employment program. It was very major for me. I mean, I had an opportunity to work. I remember having to get your working papers and do all that kind of stuff, and to actually be able to have a job. Talk to us about summer youth employment and how vital that is for young people today.
Youth employment is much more important than you think it is, especially during your high school ages, because right after high school, most people do go on to college and you are supposed to be employed to help you with your college, to pay with your tuition. Especially during this pandemic, a lot of people aren't employed. So we're just lacking resources, we're lacking the experience we need. And as young adults, we need this experience to be successful because we are the next generation and we are the future for New York City.
We also talk about segregation in school. That was another point that you brought up. Talk to us about the segregation that you feel occurs within schools.
There's a lot of data that shows that there are a lot of minority communities that have funding gaps. So predominantly white schools are getting much more funding. They are getting much more fundings than minority communities. So like I'm pretty sure predominantly white communities have gotten $23 billion for their schools, but minority communities have not been getting that. And that just causes like the graduation rate to decrease because we're not getting the resources we need, the academic resources, the books, the opportunities, and that's just, bringing the graduation rate down.
Down and unacceptable. Talk to me about talking to your peers, right? Because let's be honest, when you're a young person, sometimes being civically engaged, socially engaged, politically engaged may not necessarily be at the forefront, but you yourself find yourself spreading this message of what's going on. How easy is it to really convey this message to your fellow youth, and how receptive are they, I should say?
Well, to convince into the fellow youth, it's pretty easy because they have the same experience as me. The struggles, the pros, the cons. But other people like the Department of Education is very, hard to convince them because they're not seeing from the same eye that I'm seeing from. So it takes a little more hard work and extra step to convince them to give us the opportunities we need, to give us the fundings we need to be successful. But uh, as a youth together, it's pretty easy to convince them, and then after convincing them, taking them to the DOE and convincing everyone all together, it's not that hard. It has a very strong impact altogether.
Yeah. And so for you, when you think about what's going on right now, COVID-19 and how it's really impacted the lives of young people, what can you tell us and what can you share with us about how young people have been impacted by COVID-19?
Well, this pandemic has really affected a lot of people, especially students, going to school, not going to school, not having like proper internet, helping out their families with money. That's why I was saying youth employment is important, because right now we are lacking a lot of e- employment experiences, because most of last year and most of this year probably too, because of the virus, a lot of people are not getting the experiences they need. On top of the experience, people do need money right now for their families. So as a youth, we do like to help our families a lot. So it's very hard for them. On top of that, the pandemic is really affecting a lot of people's mental health, which, that has a bad impact on everyone, on society. On top of that, a lot of people are not getting the funds they need. So schools cannot get the funds they need. A lot of students cannot get the scholarships they need to go to the college, their dream college that they work so hard to go to.
So when we talk about college, I know college is important, but I know in order to get to college, you got to have a healthy high school, and you got to have a healthy, a healthy educational platform to actually be able to get there. Give us a little bit about what you feel is actually lacking in that classroom to prepare people to get ready for college.
Well, during this pandemic, I feel like it's a lot of the support is what we're lacking right now, because there we can't just walk up to the teacher anymore and say, hello miss, I need help with my work. Now it's just like we have to email them or we have to Zoom them, and that's not really the easiest, because everyone else now, our school life and our personal lives are mixing since we are doing school remotely. So it's just the lack of support we have, also the lack of resources. For example, like our English classes, we we had to read books through PDFs on websites. So that is really straining our eyes after having Zoom classes back to back.
And so I know you have this initiative, and you talk about, you're raising your voice, you're creating this initiative to let your voice actually be heard. Let's talk a little bit about the initiative and Teens Take Charge and some of the things that you're looking to go see. You got some programs, you got some components of your program. Share with us a little bit about it.
So Teens Take Charge, every time we have a campaign we want to do, we actually reach out to different organizations and different fundings. So Project 1424 is also aligned with youth employment. It's helping students or youth from ages 14 to 24, helping them get employment. For example, like SYP last year was canceled, and Teens Take Charge did a petition, and we were able to give about 35,000 jobs, I'm pretty sure. So it's like we do contact a lot of different organizations to help us with fundings, create petitions. People do donate, and that really helps us with our campaigns to get them out there. People do share on social media, the news, of course. So that really helps.
Yeah. And so I want to walk through a couple of things that you've got going on, particularly with your organization, Teens Take Charge. And I think you guys do some really great work. And one of the things that I understood about your summer youth employment program and even some of the initiatives that you're trying to see is that you want to see youth leaders be involved in the design and the development and the implementation of not just the summer youth employment program, but other programs concerning youth. Talk to us about having that youth voice, what that actually means in carrying out some of this stuff.
Youth voice is really important because it's specifically our experiences, not an adult's experience. As a youth, I will be getting the employment I need, so it is important for my voice to be heard. If my voice isn't heard, they won't really get the experience. They won't understand the necessities I have that employment can provide me.
And when we talk about youth, we talk about school, we talk about employment. I know another component that you guys deal with is that issue of school discipline. And that's discipline within the city school system, that you feel that that's unfair and needs some drastic reformation. Talk to us about what you don't like, what you'd like to see happen.
Specifically, you're referring to like schools being unscreened and their admission. So in particular, there are schools like SHSAT that they need to be unscreened, because if you do not have the money to get the tutoring and the resources and the books you need to get the SHSAT tutoring and the knowledge for that, you most likely will not succeed in the SHSAT test. And, you know, if I'm being very specific, minority communities, people of color do not have that type of money to have, fundings for SHSAT. So you can see predominantly white people are being shown in SHSAT schools. On top of that, a lot of schools like Eleanor Roosevelt, they have their admissions, they only accept a lot of certain people that live in their district, or some schools accept if you have like a certain attendance rate and other factors like that, which I seem is unfair because you should be able to go to the school you want. On top of that, a lot of these, they should be considered into mind right now, especially as we're in a pandemic and a lot of people can't afford the tutoring or the books or get the resources they need.
So how do you see things playing out in 2021? I mean, obviously, we're still in the process of trying to navigate COVID. A lot of us are still doing virtual, but for yourself, do you feel like the work will be is hindered simply because we are virtual and you don't have the opportunity to do in-person meetings and in-person gatherings?
Yeah, I feel like being remote, it plays a big role in my education right now because I can't explicitly get the resources I need, or it's not very easy to even focus on a computer. You know, your eyes wander off somewhere else, you end up going to Netflix, social media, you're not even paying attention to your classes. So it really, like, our education is at risk right now.
Thank you for being brutally honest. I mean, so many people think like, look, it's real easy. We just watch the computer, but there's other apps that you can watch. You can have two and three different things going on while class is going on. So it is really much harder to be distracted. Are you hopeful that, and are you really looking forward to getting back to in-person classes soon?
Yeah, I am. I was doing blended hybrid learning for a few months until it closed down, and I felt like that was more efficient for me. I had the teacher there. She was able to help me get back on track, and I had a lot of resources I needed there, like stable Wi-Fi.
Hmm. And so, yeah, that's another conversation about, equity and equality. Have you found in your youth, have you found a lot of young people have not been able to get Wi-Fi and the adequate equipment during this virtual learning? Because we're hearing some teachers say that they don't have it. We're hearing some parents say they don't have it. Bring it home for me.
Yeah, so a lot of youth, a lot of people in general just don't have stable Wi-Fi. And I think that is something the Department of Education needs to work on because they are giving free laptops, they are giving free iPads, but these iPads come with T-Mobile Wi-Fi, but it's not the strongest if everyone in your community is using that Wi-Fi. And that really hinders on your Zoom class because your Zoom class cuts off, you can't turn in your work and all these other factors.
Yeah. So, what do you want people to know about your organization and how they can support?
You guys can, fund us, contact us, anything that comes in mind because there are a lot of problems around New York City, in the US in general. So these are problems that we would like to solve and advocate for.
And so, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I'm pretty sure emailing one of the steering committee people or the adult allies in the group.
And so I need to talk about, before we go, one last thing. When we talk about the summer, and we talk about the summer coming, uh, it's coming pretty quickly. We really want to be honest about it. When we look about the summer and jobs, how valuable will it be or I should say, how painful would it be if the summer jobs program is cut as a result of COVID?
Well, it's not the first time it's being cut, and of course, Teens Take Charge will fight to get every employment back that will be provided in the summer. But it will be hard because the, you won't have anything to do because you won't have Zoom class to attend. For a lot of people, gyms, basketball courts, parks, they're very dangerous to go to with the virus spreading. So employment is very important. It's an easy way to make money and gain experience helping our future. So.
Maryam Choudhury, thank you so much for being with us and being a guest here on the Social Justice Forum's Teens for Change. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, we are taking a quick break. We want you to stay with us. We do have more on the Social Justice Forums. We'll return right after this.